Good morning, Stampers. Welcome to Technique Tuesday. I'm Tina with Tina's Crafty Ink Spot. Glad you could join me today. Well, today's technique, we're going to stick with our theme of Christmas is coming, so it's time to make some Christmas cards. So today's technique is actually called the dryer sheet technique. Now there are a couple different ways to do this, so I'm obviously going to try to show you those. Here's some of the cards I've made with them. Look at the shimmer on these cards when you do this technique. Now a lot of people aren't fond of dealing with glitter this time of year. Personally, me, I love it. My craft rooms usually got glitter everywhere. My dogs are covered in it. I like shiny. I like blingy and shiny, so this is one of my favorite techniques to do during the holidays. So I'm going to show you how you can use just plain designer series paper to create these. This one, using a designer series paper in the background. This one's my favorite so far. Then I'm going to show you how you can actually create your background. And we're going to step it up a little bit, and we're going to dry emboss this, but we're also going to stamp on the dry emboss folder and create this fun background where you have trees in the foreground, you have some stamped trees in the background, and you even have a pine bough that's in the front foreground. So this one's got a lot of dimension to it. So we're going to do this one today also. Here's where I did the stamping on the embossing folder, didn't do as much on the background, and then stamped my pine boughs on the front. So it's kind of your personal preference what you would like to do with that technique. So let's get started. We're going to start with our first one, and we are using this amazing paper called Feels Like Frost. I've got to pull this out of the container and show you. Look at this paper. It's all, sorry, I've been using it. It's all realistic images of frosts, and this one would work great for fall. Look at these. Aren't they? They're just wonderful. This is the one I used for this background. So look at that. You could actually just use this paper, stick it on a card base, and add a greeting, and it's done. So if you haven't decided, or you're on the fence about this on your wish list, I would definitely invest in it. I mean, look at all those. And the backside, silver. Look at all the silver. Snowflakes. Anyway, okay, so I was real excited about this paper when it arrived, and I just knew I wanted to try this technique with it. So we will set that aside, and we're going to get started. So out of that paper, I've taken one of the images, and I've cut it down. I've got my card base that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 and folded, so it's actually 11, scored at 5 1/2. And then I've got a Night of Navy matte that is 4 by 5 1/4, and then this I've cut just under 4, about an 1/8 under 4 and an 1/8 under 5 1/4. I wanted to keep as much of this paper as I could, so it's going to have a really minimal matte. As you see, it's going to just be a real thin matte, just to break it apart and give you some dimension to your project. So we're going to use this. Now, you also need dryer sheets. You need to use used dryer sheets at that. So when they're used, they're not as thick. They don't have all the that kind of waxy film that a dryer sheet has. So just make sure they're used and been run through your dryer. I trim this one down, and now when your dryer sheets come out of the dryer, often they're crumpled up. I personally, this might be my own little OCD, I iron mine flat. I have a little craft iron I keep in my craft room. It's about this big, and I think it cost me $8 for a little iron. So I do iron mine flat because I want to keep as much of the image showing as I can. When it's wrinkled, as you see, it could crumple up and kind of hide some of your image. But don't misunderstand me, the crinkled ones really do look nice depending on what project you're putting them on. Sometimes you want that extra dimension of a crinkled one. So this part is obviously to your preference. Try it both ways. See what you like. You also need a glue stick. So I went and I pulled out my old Stampin' Up! Glue stick, and it's dried out. This is how old this is. I don't even think Stampin' Up! Sells them anymore. You can get glue sticks right at the office store. Or you can do like I'm going to do today, and I'm going to use spray adhesive. I like using the spray adhesive. I think it works better. But again, your personal preference. I'm just going to let you know what your options are. What you're looking for is a glue that's going to go down on this, and when your dryer sheet is attached to it, that the glue is tacky enough that you will be able to add the glitter over the top. That will make sense as we go on with this. So today I'm going to use Elmer's spray adhesive, and a heads up, if you are going to use this, use it in a very well ventilated area. It is stinky. So what we're going to do, and to do my spray adhesive, if you have a little like glitter box or something like that, I would use that to use your spray adhesive. What I do is I just take a plastic grocery bag, I lay my image in the bag, kind of lay it in there, and then we're going to add our spray adhesive. So make sure you've got a nice coverage of spray adhesive. Now we're going to take it out of our bag, move our bag away, and you are going to bring in, you need your Dazzling diamonds or any fine glitter, any fine clear glitter. Dazzling diamonds is my all-time favorite. It's fine, it's beautiful, and that's what we are using today. I will have links to it in my blog. So now we're going to take our dryer sheet and we're just going to lay it right over that adhesive. And if you don't think you have enough adhesive on it, you can always just lightly spritz it, but I think I can feel my adhesive through there. So now you're going to take your, I would do this because you don't want the excess. Take a pair of scissors, and use an old pair of scissors because, you know, this does have adhesive that might get on your good scissors. Just a personal preference. I have certain scissors I use for just ribbon, certain scissors I use for techniques where it's okay if they get a little icky because they're cheap. So we're just trimming away the dryer sheet. Oops. And because I took just a little bit of extra time talking, jabbering, I am going to bring in my bag and spritz this lightly. Just a little bit. Just very, very minimal. Because I just want my glitter to be able to stick in behind. Because your glitter is going to go behind the dryer sheet. So we're just going to sprinkle it generously with Dazzling diamonds. Oop. Well, it's a good thing I had my little tray there. And then just take your finger and rub it in, and it'll go behind the dryer sheet. This is where you get glitter everywhere. And then tap it off real well. There you go. And then I just take and run my fingers over it to knock off all the loose stuff. We're going to set that aside. Let's have our glitter with us. Let me bring in a baby wipe to wipe up some of this and get it off my fingers. And then I just, to pick up my excess glitter that's on it, see how it got glitter on there? I just take my baby wipe, lightly wipe over my space, and it picks it all up for you. There you go. Well, majority of it, but it picks it up. You get the gist. So now we're going to take this, and I'm going to take and add a greeting. Now, if you want your greeting to be muted, kind of like your picture's muted a little bit with the dryer sheet on there, then you would stamp your greeting on here before the dryer sheet and the glue. But I want my greeting to be a little more prominent, so I'm going to bring in my Stamparatus. And let's see, what greeting do we want to use? So we have so many stars. Has some wonderful greetings in it. Just really nice greetings. And I really like this, may you enjoy the beautiful season, because to me this is beautiful. Or we could go with this one, both of which I want to fit in this little corner here. But I think I'm going to go with my original, which is may you enjoy this beautiful season. Now, stamping on this dryer sheet and on the glitter is not going to hurt your stamp. And the easiest way to clean this afterward to make sure you get all the glitter off is just take it to your kitchen sink or bathroom sink and run water over it, and it'll clean it right off. So since my card base is Night of Navy, I'm going to use Night of Navy for my greeting. There we go. Look, I have blue ink all over. Well, at least it matches my nails this week, doesn't it? Blue ink. So it may take a couple times of stamping it to get it through that dryer sheet. Again, where the Stamparatus is your lifesaver. I don't even know how I functioned before this stamp positioning tool came out. Okay, I'm going to do one more time. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Just grab my baby wipe, get my ink off here. My Night of Navy is very juicy right now, apparently. And your baby wipe or however you clean your stamps, the only reason I wouldn't put it into my stamp cleaning is then you're going to have glitter in that. So just take this piece and just rinse it in the sink, and it'll clean it right off. Cleans the ink too. If you're doing something where you've inked up a lot of stamps several times, you know, then it's a good way to clean your stamps. Just rinse them off and dry them. Look at that. Look how simple and elegant that turned out. And I'm just going to leave it kind of plain and simple. Put it on our card base, or our card mat. Now, a lot of times, now this is a foil. You can use tape, but sometimes foils, your tape doesn't seem to adhere as well. But since I'm a glue person anyway, I use glue for pretty much everything, except for ribbon. I do use tape when I'm putting ribbon on a card, which you could do to this one too. You could add a little bit of ribbon on the bottom there if you want, but I'm trying to keep it kind of plain and simple to not take from the technique itself. I like glue too because I can get it right to my corners. I'm one of those people that if my card is lifting at the corners, my OCD can't handle it. And look how plain and simple and elegant that card is. And the shimmer. You could even take, oh, you know what we'll find? Why don't we grab one of, remember the old snowflake trinkets? You know what? I'm going to put that little trinket right there. I need a glue dot. And we're just going to add a simple little snowflake right to, when you're using your glue dots with embellishments, just get to your glue dot and just take your embellishment and press it right down over the glue dot. There you go. And then just let's stick it on here. There we go. Look at that. Look how quick and simple. And just very, the camera is not doing it justice. It really isn't, but it is very pretty. So now, we're going to move to the next one. And the next one is I'm going to show you how to actually stamp, emboss, dry emboss, stamp on your background. And I'm going to do it where I'm going to add a background color so that my, what are these, birch trees, I think? I don't know. I'm not really sure. If somebody knows, leave a comment. But I want these to be prominent. I want them to pop. So I'm going to do some background colors and some trees. So let's bring in our Stamparatus. And we're going to bring in some Balmy blue, which I'm going to do for the light background. And then my Night of Navy for my trees. And for my trees, I'm using the Winter Woods. And I'm going to try this tree line. This is what I used on the card I just showed you. See the two trees in the background there? That's this one right here. If you want to do that one, just stamp it twice onto your embossing folder like we're going to do here. But we're going to try this set of trees here. So you have your Stamparatus and have your piece, your image piece ready. This one is 3 3/4 by 5, and then I've got my Night of Navy matte and my card base. So it's going to go like that. So we're going to, and we have another piece of dryer sheet ready. Okay. So now we're going to take our embossing folder. Now, when you're doing this, where you're stamping onto your embossing folder and you want your images to be behind your trees, you are going to actually be stamping on the side that has the words. Okay, does that make sense? And if you get confused or forget, when you open this, you'll be able to see that the trees are inlaid on this writing side. So that means when you take ink over the top of it, it's not going to go down inside. Okay, so if you get confused, but stick with the side with the writing is where you're going to be embossing. So I'm going to be doing this upside down because of the way my Stamparatus is set up right now. But see, I want these limbs to be pointing upward when I'm done. So I'm actually going to be stamping my image upside down for this one. And all I'm going to do is set it in here. And I'm just going to use, bring this into, I'll try to zoom in just a little. There's not a lot of room here. So I'm going to take my magnets and lay them next to my embossing folder. Kind of holds it into place up against the edge here. Okay. Now you're going to figure out where you are going to have this image. Okay. So I'm going to do, remember this is the bottom of my trees down here because the limbs go up this way. So I want my, I'm going to be doing my sheet down here. Okay. So that's where we want to line up our trees. So we're going to lay them both in there like that. Pick it up, remove your piece of paper, and I'm going to do my background first, which I'm just going to take my Balmy blue and I'm going to do it flat over my embossing folder. Okay. You can kind of drag it a little bit. And see how your trees don't have the ink on them? That's what you want. Okay. So let me close this. And now I'm going to take my Night of Navy and I'm going to ink up my trees really well. And the other good reason of doing this with the Stamparatus is that you can stamp these background trees more than once if you need to. So I'm just going to stamp that down. Now, because this folder is so thick, it's gonna, you kind of got to work on the edge over here a little bit. So I'm going to do that one more time so my trees are nice and bold there. There we go. So now we're going to take this out of here. And I'm going to move my Stamparatus out of the way here. We're going to bring in our Big Shot. Now, so remember your trees are toward the bottom. So gently lay your card, just kind of drop it down, try not to move it, so you've just dropped it down and then close it up. And now we're going to run it through the Big Shot. I usually run mine forward and then backward so that to ensure it gets inked well. The Big Shot on my paper down below me is not liking that. So then when you open it up, and then when you're done, just take this embossing folder and run it under your tap water. See, there's our trees in the background. Doesn't that look neat? So I'm going to set that aside also to be rinsed off. Move our Big Shot back out of the way. Kind of crumpled up my paper there. Okay, so now we have our background. And we are going to bring in our plastic bag. Where did my... So bring our plastic bag back. It just, by putting it inside the bag like this, just keeps your adhesive from flowing everywhere. Because it is a spray. So we want to have our oh my gosh, dryer sheet ready. Okay, our dryer sheet, our bag away, add our dryer sheet. Now, just trim your dryer sheet again. I have a customer that every year this is her absolute favorite technique. So she loves to come over and make these. And of course, the ones I sell to my family, this is always my family buys cards from me every year, so this is one of their favorites also. So now we're going to add our glitter and pick up what we had there. And now rub it in a little bit. Just use your finger and get it down in there a little bit. So yes, this ultrafine glitter gets everywhere. And there are people that really don't like to mess with glitter because it does get everywhere. But to me, that just means holiday card making season's in motion. So now, tap that off a little bit. Okay, now what I did is I've got a pine bow here. And this comes from the bundle Peaceful Boughs. And it comes with coordinating dies. Look at these boughs. Is it bows or bows? I think it's bows, but it's got all these beautiful coordinating dies. And I've cut one out. And now I want to add some texture and interest to this one. So what I did is now I'm going to bring in our puff paint. This is new in the holiday catalog. And it is puff paint. It's an accent paint. Now it's really thin. And then I have some of my Dazzling diamonds into a little spritz applicator. This is what I normally keep at my craft space for adding just little accents. So we have some of that. It's just Dazzling diamonds. And we're going to take our puff paint. Let me grab a wipe. Now this puff paint is very thin until you heat it, okay? So all I'm doing is I'm going to add a little, and don't really squeeze, just kind of lay it down because this is very fluid. And I'm adding a few accents of the snow to this, and it's going to look like snow sitting on the branch. Like I said, you don't need to squeeze this puff paint, and a little bit goes a long way. You may think, oh, that's not going to be very puffy, but it will. See, just this little bit is all I'm going to add. Then I'm going to take my Dazzling Diamonds little needlepoint spritzer, and I'm just going to spritz some Dazzling Diamonds on that puff paint, and it's going to make it look like snow. Because the puff paint is just white. It doesn't have any shimmer. So now, let me grab tweezers though so that doesn't blow away. So I'm just going to take my heat tool now. Oops, I got... And now I'm going to heat set that puff paint and then watch it puff up. See if I can do it on the camera where you can see it. Try to do it up here where you can see. See it's starting to puff there? And now depending on how thick you put this on, make sure you heat it plenty so that there's no fluid coming out afterward. So just heat it really well. And look at that. Can you see the dimension of the puff paint? I think we've got it dry. So look at that puff paint. Can you see how it's sticking up a little? And it looks like snow laying on the leaves. I love this stuff. And so I decided, I'm going to put the lid on it. This little container of puff paint will probably last you several seasons, depending on what you use it for. But I mean, a little bit goes a really long way. And these little needlepoint jars, you can get them. I mean, you see how old this one is. I mean, all the writings even wore off it. But you can get these at the craft store. You usually get like 3 for $5 or something. But I've always used it for directing my Dazzling diamonds. Let me clean up some of this glitter with my... And then I'm just going to take this little pine bough. Is it bough or bow? If somebody knows the etiquette of it, that, leave me a message. I don't know. I guess I never thought about it. So I want this to go right on my... And that's going to add the third dimension to this. And I would use glue in gluing things down to this because of the dryer sheet and the glitter. And let's put it on our mat. And now, just to add a little more interest to this, I have one of the deer that comes in the snow globe set. You will love this. It's got deer, it's got bears, it's got a little church steeple, and of course the snow globe that you can make. But what I'm going to do is I want to trim off this bottom piece that normally goes on the snow globe. I'm just going to trim that off and make him a freestanding deer. And then again, use my glue. And let's put, now if you have him, if you put him like, trying to grab a hold of him, where his little tushy is in front of one of these trees, it'll look like he's coming out from behind the tree. Isn't that adorable? Now, if you want also, which I probably should have told you about doing, see where the ink went for the outside of our trees? I like it like that. But you can also add, take your Night of Navy pen before you add your dryer sheet and draw lines on those trees. I should have told you about that earlier. My bad. But you can darken the highlights on those trees with just your Stampin' Right marker, and it just makes it a little bolder. This particular one, I just wanted it to stay the way when you ink it. And then we'll add that to a card base. And there you go. Look at the dimension in that. There you go. That's the dryer sheet glitter, or glitter dryer sheet. So you can pretty much go over anything. Okay? You can take and put it over designer series paper. This paper right here is this is the Toile Tidings paper. So you have all these beautiful papers here which you could do that same technique over the top of. Or you could use my one I love. If you don't have this on your list, you will not be disappointed by getting it. It's called Feels Like Frost. I will have a link to this down below. And there you go. There's how you do the glitter dryer sheet. And there's just so many options available just to make your card shiny and glittery and that whole holiday scene deal. So I hope you enjoyed today's quick class on the glitter dryer sheet. Hope you have a happy Stampin' Day. Bye-bye.